I was thinking yesterday that maybe I would have done a talkie today because I went to Nick Cave's gig, and last time that I went to a gig like that, it was The Cure. I wrote about it, and when I want to feel good about myself, I remind myself that that's been described as the best piece, not that I wrote, but that actually had ever been wrote for the the web zine that he went on. Um, I don't write. I don't write anymore. I didn't write often when I did, because I think writing takes a level of awareness in words that if you keep up all the time will consume you and destroy you, or at least it would for me. So I never was quite interested in being a writer, but I went to the gig yesterday because back in February, when the tickets came out, I wanted to get a proper gift to my husband. I don't remember if it was for his birthday at the time, for one of our anniversaries, but I know that Nick Cave is very meaningful to us. On our second date, I got him tickets to see 20,000 Days on Earth, which at the time was in cinemas for the premiere, and that was what then drove us that very night to say "I love you" to each other. So I don't know. Also, we had one of Nick Cave's songs playing during our wedding ceremony while we were signing everything. Anyway, the gig was at the O2, which is not the kind of venue you would imagine Nick Cave playing at. Um, Especially coming from the last couple of years where it was 20,000 Days, and then there was once more with Philly, the second documentary. Uh, I was gonna say I have conflicting feelings. I don't have conflicting feelings, but I kept on wondering, I kept on having these questions in my head because the thing of the gig yesterday that reminded me of this review that I mean, yeah, it was supposed to be, it was called a review to me, it was a story or it was a recount. The thing that is similar though to yesterday's gig to the Cure one that I did years ago was that, I don't know, maybe it's the weird way that I think. Um, Musicians more than any other kind of artist to me become really braided along with their public persona, their artistry, and their life. And I'll be honest, when Skeleton Tree was released and when the this tour was announced, I, silly as it might sound, I felt worried for Nick Cave, the person rather than just the musician, because what is known but is rightfully not talked about because it's not our business. There was a terrible tragedy that hit Nick Cave's family last year, 2 years ago now, I think last year, and that was one of his sons. He has two sons with Susie, and one of them died in Brighton. He fell off a cliff. Um, According to articles, according to reports, because he was under the influence. And he was a teenager. He was like 15, I want to say. My little brain cannot begin to comprehend that kind of tragedy. And when the tour was announced and the album was announced, then fair enough, I discovered later on that actually the album was in the work and existed before this tragedy. But I think it was very easily taken on and assumed that things were connected. I even remember hearing when Once More Good Feeling was out that the point was for him doing this so that he didn't have to handle interviews and people interaction anymore on that public persona side. And you know what? When that happened, I was like, you know what? If this man decides after the almost 30 years of career to never go out on his public persona, on his public duties again, I understand him. Like he should, if he doesn't feel like it, he shouldn't tour anymore. He owes nothing to uh, people and fans, even despite the kind of absolute adoration and love to the point of almost religious dedication that I have seen in people, especially during Nick Cave's gigs. They called being in the first rows and being like holding his hand or getting a grasp of him. They called that being baptized. That, I mean, Nick Cave didn't invent the religious echoes that being on a stage during a performance or a ritual is like. He didn't invent any of that. But I've seen very few people perfect it to that level. And the thing that got to my mind when the tour was announced was there is a big exchange of energy during a gig uh, for anyone. Uh, for an artist that also embraces that metaphorical messiah role, even more so. And Nick Cave tends to do that. Let's. I mean, one before a few days before the gig happened, I kept on thinking about Tender Napalm by Philip Ridley, which I discovered hasn't been performed since its premiere in, I want to say, 2011, which is a shame because as twisted as Philip Ridley's work are, there's few things that he can hit sensitivity as much. But Tender Napalm is a play that Philip Ridley premiered in 2011 here in London, and it's very, it might seem as a very confusing um, chaptered story. It's just two characters. It's a man and a woman, and you don't quite. And it keeps on changing the background and the perspective. You don't quite. At least I didn't quite get it until thankfully I saw. I'm not sure if I saw the premiere or I saw simply during the first bunch of plays. I saw the one where Philip Ridley was, and he explained that the whole concept behind that Tender Napalm is a couple that tries to rekindle their romantic and sexual life after the loss of the fruit of their romantic and sexual relationship, which was the loss of a child. So no complex thought there of why I connected the two things. And there was there were 20,000 people there, and one of the things that I kept on thinking and I kept on talking to people about was that 20,000 people, it's a big number. It's not the kind of venue that Nick Cave used to play, and that religious aura of connection and that weird, powerful exchange of energy cannot be done in a place this huge. You can't have that kind of connection. So really peculiar of the choice. But on the other side, I was like, well, fair enough. He doesn't want to do 3, 4, 5 dates in a row in the same small venue. Just get it done and over with. But then again, that wasn't quite explaining to me why I would undertake the effort of going on a tour again. It didn't have to. It didn't have to. Supposedly, that's part of the reason we made again once more with feeling. And when the gig started for the first half, I was relatively bothered because, again, I am personally attached to Higgs Boson Blues because we played it at our wedding, and maybe he played it too early in the gig, and it felt like he wasn't quite in it in the kind of mindset that I think Higgs Boson Blues calls to. Like, watch the version on 20,000 Days and you see what I mean. But then, closer that we were getting to the end, and then at the encore, it is something that I didn't. It never occurred to me could be done. And probably he can do it also because of the kind of public and fans he has. But beside the people and the hands going on, trying to touch him, not even grab him is a worse thing reserved for other kind of bands. But that was more of a touching and a connection. But even beside that, in the encore, he started to go around the arena. It's a big arena. The O2 is huge, monumentally huge. And he went to the sides and he started performing there. He started bringing people back to the stage. There was, well, it wasn't a stage invasion, because when I say stage invasion, I think of the Libertines and stuff like that. It wasn't like that. It was like the Magic Piper in a way. The way there were so many people and it could sort of tame them all at the same time, because it's the reason why music and gigs and all these kind of things um, have always been so inspirational to me, that I tried them to work in this kind of world, because the level, sometimes there is this kind of energy that comes through that it's not short of supernatural, because it cannot be quite described. And there's a lot of metaphorical sense, and there's a lot of metaphorical energy, and there's a lot of projection, and there's this person who ends up being a vessel for whatever people want to see from this person. But at the same time, this person embraces the role, which can leave you quite empty. But at the moment that you are channeling this energy, you're being the vessel for this energy, it can either overwhelm you or you can very much tame it. And I think Nick Cave is one of the very few that can tame that. I have seen gigs and artists dealing with hysteria, with the craziness of fans. Nick Cave fans are a bit different. It's not just about touching, meeting. It's less manic than that. It's not less intense, but it's definitely less maniac. Where for maniac I mean sort of the the kind of obsession that people can drag into their everyday life. You wouldn't think most fans actually very easily seep into being stalkers. And that's also part, unfortunately, of the experience of the things I've seen. And at some point I've done. And I'm really glad to see that, no, there are some artists whose art is just so valuable itself that people stuck to that more than start being obsessive with the person. And you know what? Probably it's my fault that I focused more on the person, thinking, when I heard about the tour, thinking about is familiar situation, is personal condition and all that kind of stuff. That's probably my personal deformity, going and thinking in that sense. But at some point I was looking around and I was thinking, you know what? I wish, there is a part of me that wishes that this man that can gather this level of, this amount of people to this level of devotion, I wish he was given the chance and the power to sacrifice us all and literally make that pact with the devil if necessary, and give them all the 20,000 souls that we are here tonight, to just get his life and his son back. I don't know. I went there. I know it's crazy. But that was what I was looking around. Like, you have these 20,000 people here that are in complete awe and adoration of what you do. And these are all strangers. And you have this amount of devoted strangers around all the time. And that doesn't do anything and can't do anything to give him back the piece of his life that he has lost. I find it almost unfair. In a way, I didn't feel it was fair for us to feast on that energy. And if we were, he should have had a way to trade us all, because we were that there and willing to get that energy for ourselves from a person that doesn't know us anything. He should have been able to trade us all to get his song back. I don't know. I am. Hey, maybe this is the reason why I can't or I don't work anymore in the music industry, because this is the kind of thought that get into my head, and this is the kind of heaviness that I bring on my chest even just after a gig. Why can't I just see a gig and enjoy the songs? And instead I go to these places.